Hagar. I'm doing a very quick one, although I say that and sometimes it doesn't end up being that way at all. I'm doing a relatively quick one where I'm going to explain the difference between inner authority and outer authority. You are likely aware of the phrase strategy and authority. They are the basic principles of human design. But when we say authority, there's a nuance here. It's very important to understand the difference between inner authority and outer authority. Inner authority, even here I'm like, oh, there's always a nuance, you know, there's always an exception to the rule. But inner authority is something that each of us has. There's a mechanic, grain of salt, there's a mechanic inside each of us that gives us our own inner authority. Now I say that with a grain of salt because this rule doesn't apply to everybody. For the majority of authorities, there is a mechanical explanation for an inner authority, but for two of the authorities, this gets trickier. The mental projector and the reflector do not have inner authority. The mental projector, depending on where you read it, it will literally say no inner authority. And for the reflector, the moon is the authority. The lunar cycle, waiting a lunar cycle, is how they access their authority. For everybody else, whether it is the self-projected projector, the ego-projected projector, the ego-manifested manifester, the splenic manifester or projector, the sacral MG or generator, or the emotional projector, generator, or manifester, lots of these are in the body graph. There is a mechanic, whether it is the solar plexus, the sacral, the spleen, the ego, the G center. There were definable inner authorities. The mental projector and the reflector are the nuance for this because there's a way that they process to access the authority. The reflector is processing along with the lunar cycle, whereas the mental projector is processing through understanding and feeling their environment and soundboarding with others. That was my acknowledgement of that's what the inner authority is, or that's where the personal authority is for each person. Now, what is outer authority? Outer authority is such a significant part of the conversation, but in many ways it is overlooked. You could very loosely describe outer authority as my authority goes outward to somebody else. Not that they access mine, but that I become almost like a symbolic authority for this person. Now we have to be very careful with this because we believe that within human design, we each have our own authority. So why would you ever need to access outer authority from somebody else? This is what we might loosely term advice, guidance, direction, awareness. Somebody can give you something, ideally, that's going to help you and your authority make the right decision for yourself. Now, outer authority is really developed through the mind. Each person's mind is meant to be developed to a point where it can become outer authority for somebody else. But truthfully, most of our minds are garbage. Most minds are deeply conditioned, deeply homogenized, not self, and truly not valuable to the other. There are truly few people who actually can be outer authority. Now, to be outer authority, that's not like saying like somebody else's boss, somebody else's dictator, somebody else's leader, somebody else's like authoritarian. That's not what this is. To be somebody's outer authority, you have to get to a place of your own development where you can give differentiated advice, differentiated awareness. Now, I stutter on using the word guidance here because I don't want to conflict with what the projector is actually doing when they grab the magnetic monopole of the other. That is how the projector guides. It's how only the projector can guide. But you can use the term guiding as a general word to say like leading or giving advice or showing something. Like, you know, if I hire a hunting guide, they're going to show me how to hunt in the wilderness, right? In order to develop your mind as outer authority, you need to go through the four? You need to go through the four. You need to go through the 4 transformations. The first transformation belongs to the brain. We're going to be looking at variable for this. So if you are looking at the design side, the sun and earth, they will hold the variable for the brain. Your brain is meant to be fed according to your correct determination in order to bring out your specific cognition. That's the first transformation. If I look at my body graph, its consecutive appetite will help me develop my taste cognition. Through those, I eventually get to a point of my first Saturn return when it's time for me to really step into the storyline of my life. And that storyline has a specific setting, which is found in my environment. The environment, though, is the color below the line in the design north and south node. Again, for my example, I am markets internal. So the idea is that I feed my brain a certain way, I turn on a specific cognition that helps me function properly in my body so that my well-functioning body finds its right environment. That's the second transformation. Now from that right environment, I look across to the personality north and south node. And again, I'm looking at the color below the line level for those specific gates. That's going to hold my view perspective. So for myself, I am personal view with a transference of power view. When I eat right, turn on the right cognition, find the right markets internal, it should allow me to see better from my personal view and not a distorted perspective of a transferred power view. Now, we're going to put a few things together here. Now, assuming I'm actually living my life as my type, I'm following my strategy, I'm waiting to be invited, I'm following my authority, I'm only going where my spleen feels safe, healthy, and comfortable, I'm feeding my brain appropriately, I'm acknowledging my cognition, I'm supporting it, I'm mouth breathing more, I'm in the right markets place, there is consistent bartering and bargaining and transaction and business happening for me. I see how this affects me personally. I'm in my success. I'm not feeling bitter. That makes me, not to pat my own back or toot my own horn, but also to pat my own back and toot my own horn because self-recognition is wonderful. I'm getting pretty good at outer authority because I'm getting pretty good at the rest of my design. When you hire me to be your guide, in many ways what you are hiring is a third line personality with a strategic mind, with innocence motivation, with action sense. When this mind is oriented correctly for myself, I'm going to give excellent outer authority. My mind truly is meant to be utilized by the other, tapped by the other. Our own minds are distorted places for us to become our own authority. If you go back to the beginning of this conversation where I labeled all the authorities, I did not say at any point that the mind was anybody's authority. The mind is only outer authority, but it's not to say that anybody's mind is anybody else's outer authority or can be anybody else's outer authority. It has to be developed. But you don't develop the mind by doing mental things. The mind is the fourth transformation because it's the last one. It's the destination. It's not about how do I get my mind. That's how you end up in psychology courses. And psychology courses are entertaining, but they tend to ignore the biology, and the biology is where it starts. If you don't feed your brain correctly, you're not going to think correctly. It's the last transformation. It's the last place that we give authority from because it needs longer to be developed. The difference between inner authority is my spleen, and my outer authority is my mind that is here to be used by the other when it's been developed correctly according to my mechanics. Okay, that feels good on authority, and remember the difference with the mental projector and the reflector. They are the grain of salt in this whole conversation. And I feel like I'm done. I said everything that needed to be said. That was a good one. I'll see you next time.